So, hello everyone, welcome back to the AAA podcast. Today marks the start of season two, episode one. We're joined again by the great Zack Losack, PLU strength coach.
Great.
Yeah. We're also coming at you from three different time zones, which is pretty cool. Zach's over in Washington, Anthony,
hmm
you're at TCU in Texas, and I'm over in just outside of Boston in Massachusetts. So, got some mileage on us today.
Yeah,
Making
I
it even
know.
work.
Yeah. Um, yeah, so I guess Lozak, you can kind of like open it up with your explaining your topic, but we're just kind of going to discuss about what you presented on. If you
Sure.
want to take it away and give us the rundown, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, first, it's cool to see you guys out doing the thing. Um, it's definitely one of the more fun parts of the career is when you're first starting. You kind of don't really know where you're gonna go, where you're gonna end up. So it's cool to see y'all chasing that stuff. But yeah, I had the opportunity to speak at the Washington State Clinic for the NSCA, which was really fun. And originally, I wanted to present on esports and strength and conditioning surrounding esports players, but that got vetoed for whatever reason. I think it's a pretty untapped market. I think a lot of people in there would be interested because that was something I found interesting. Like it was a lot of like private practitioners, a lot of like personal trainers, physical therapists. There were a few high school strength and conditioning coaches, um, and a few college ones, but it was certainly I wouldn't say like a strength and conditioning audience as a whole, which kind of sucked because then my topic was on like creating culture in a in a collegiate weight room. Uh, so that was kind of interesting when I got that vibe of the room. Then I'm like, all right, well, I guess I mean, that's honestly why I brought so many of you guys because I'm like, at least there'll be like five people who get something out of me talking up here. But yeah, that was the topic was creating and maintaining culture in the weight room, uh, which I think is pretty prevalent or relevant whether you're in the collegiate or private space. Because it's all the culture is it's what you do. It's the way that like it's described as like the way things are done around here. Um, and that can make or break whether you keep a client or whether student athletes are actually enjoying coming into the space, which has a huge effect on their well-being in general while they're on campus.
What's or the core values or the things you're looking to instill in your environment, like having your first head strength and conditioning rule.
Yeah, the you say core values, right?
Yeah.
So the ones that I'm currently, trying to live by and model are trust, consistency, and ownership. Um, I think sometimes like when you're thinking about core values or somebody asks you what they are, it's hard not to feel the pressure to not parrot, but it's hard to like be original in your core values. And a lot of these sort of core values and mission statements, if your strength and conditioning department or your strength and conditioning department is one part of a network sort of care for the student athlete, they can kind of sound the same. But it's all about how you define, understand, and then seek to find and create those qualities within the teams that you work with. So trust is, at least to me, is sort of defined as open and honest two-way communication. Um, and that's why it's first. I mean, you just say that and that's pretty huge, right? Like you want the people who you're in a position of authority above to feel comfortable coming to you, especially when it's something physical, and you're working with them in that capacity. Um, it's important to trust each other, and it's important for them to know that they can be honest with you and just be real. And you can have a real relationship and a real connection with the people you work with. It's not, it doesn't have to be limited just because you're in this position of authority. You can level with people, and you can take that off when the time is appropriate, and treat people like real human beings and actually care about your relationships with them. The second one, consistency is, I think, the cornerstone of just any type of goal, mission, whatever you want. Like essentially anything that you want to achieve requires consistency. If you are rehabbing from an injury, you need to be consistent with your rehab, right? If you're trying to change a behavior as part of your lifestyle, you need to be consistent more than you're inconsistent, right? And so, like, this idea of how it applies to the weight room is pretty simple. Like, the goal is to get better and to improve yourself from both that physical, but also a mental and emotional perspective, and how you understand yourself. And you can only gain that if you actually buy in to a program and run that program, right? It's like a bunch of programs work, and they always work the best if you do it to the T and you stick to it, right? And I found that out in programming things for myself, and also mistakes that I made with athletes. I tried to run a certain type of programming sort of halfway through, then change it up. And to be honest, I would have gotten better results if I just stuck with it, right? And so it kind of has multiple levels there in terms of what consistency means. And then the last one, ownership. I think if you just combine those last two, this kind of feeds into an environment where it's no longer my weight room. It's no longer Coach Losack's weight room or PLU's weight room or Name's Fitness Center. It's our weight room, right? And feeling that way and having that sense of ownership makes it more likely that you're going to be consistent and that you're going to enjoy yourself and that you're going to reach those goals, because it's a place that you care about it, right? Ownership is essentially you care enough about a space or a person or something to call it yours. And so that's what we're rolling with right now. I think it's important to be flexible and open-minded about that kind of stuff, and be willing to change if new information comes your way, or if you need to redefine the things that you're doing. Culture should change with time because people do.
I really like those. I'm in a very unique place right now where, like, there's a lot of collegiate athletes, and then there's also a lot of Gen Pop people of all ages. And I know your presentation was mainly on collegiate settings, but I think those hold true for really any setting. I mean, people who are coming to a gym, they're coming both to get their work in, and then also for, like, at least some sort of social aspect. They want to have some sort of, like, trust and relationship, both with the people they're with and the people they're training. And yeah, I think those goals hit the nail on the head with, like, how to create that in the weight room.
Yeah. And there are a bunch of different methods to do it, and again, it's going to change whether you're working one-on-one, small group, larger teams, right? Like, the methods that you do to instill those things will change, but at the end of the day, like, you have to give some element of input to the people you coach, which I think is hard for practitioners and coaches alike. Is like, how much autonomy and power do I give these people in the decision-making process for what we're doing in the program? And when do I know is the right time to give them that freedom, right? And so again, that looks different. And specifically in, our space, one of the ones that, or at least the collegiate strength and conditioning space that I like is like asking an athlete, you can ask them to demo, which is like an easy one to start doing. But knowing that an athlete is good at some movement and having them explain it and having them walk through it. That's only happened once organically that I've seen. And it was at POU, which is pretty cool. But that's like, just there are different means and methods that you can use to, like, develop that, and it can be a conscious process. Like, it's partially like how you live and what you actually do and sort of give to the space. But there's also room for design, and that there's room for like consciously thinking about these aspects and then purposefully adding them in to what you do.
Like earlier you talked about, or you mentioned about like building buy-in with athletes. Being a strength coach, you hear things that people do. Like, what are the common errors you hear that maybe people make with creating athlete buy-in? Or I know a common thing is like just buy-in, just buy-in, just telling the
Mhm.
athletes to do it. Uh, how do you look to create buy-in in a weight room setting? Like, I know you mentioned the
I
core
think,
values, but just expanding on that specifically.
yeah, the core values is something that like you don't need to sit there and like have the people you're working with remember the core values. Like that's more for like the staff, you know what I mean? And for recruiting stuff too, because I've seen plenty of parents' eyes light up when I start giving the core value speech. So like it's also a pretty good selling tool for the adults in the room, and in the interview process as well. That's where it's really huge, as when you're interviewing for a position. So like actually going about like doing those things, like you said, to create buy-in, I think the cold hard truth that is kind of scary because it's either you did or you didn't. The program has to work to some degree. Like you can't create buy-in week one or even like block or phase one. You know what I mean? Like the buy, it's not going to come at that point, right? You can set yourself up and posture yourself to when the results do come, the environment's already there, right? Like you sort of set the stage, everyone's kind of waiting, and then boom, they PR, right? Or the majority of the team PRs, or you start seeing these blips, and those are the moments that really create the buy-in that is just further facilitated by the environment that you created when you were letting that program first breathe and first actually run its course. But a lot of
Um,
coaches are uncomfortable with that because they're just like, oh, they should want to be here. It's like, well, they're only going to want to be there if they see that their time is getting rewarded with results. And then it's a secondary that like, oh, and coach is a nice person who's open and that I can talk to. Like that definitely brings it up, but it's like, dude, it's gotta work.
Anthony, you can go.
I'll go for it.
I was curious because you coach 17 teams, Luzak?
18 now. Let's go women's
18
lax,
now.
baby. Come on. Firing it up.
Are there like differences in teams and groups that you've seen you've kind of had to like adjust around to get
Oh
buy-in, or is
yeah.
it all pretty much the same mentality going
Oh,
into it?
it's like I don't want to say this or how am I thinking about it? It's like the same person but different shades. Same person, different outfits, right? Um, you can't come at the golf team with the same intensity that you come with the football team. I mean, Anthony, you've been in football sessions with me. Like, do I ever yell at any other team like I yell at football? No, no, right? Like, but they like they respond to that, and I try to do it in a way that compliments who I am. But dude, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because I played football, and so I have like high expectations of what football players should be like. But oh man, when they make a mistake, it hits me different than when than when any other team does. Um, but yeah, like you have to just like any relationship, like there's a getting to know the other side, period. You know what I mean? Like you have to observe them, you have to talk to them, um, with and take in what they're saying and how they're acting and what their body language is and stuff like that. And from there, you'll find different parts of yourself that you can bring to the forefront, right? And then with some other teams, that part may not be as important. You need to be a little bit more this. Um, but it's important to try to remember to stay true to yourself. Like, don't try and be someone you're not, but you got to kind of have some range if you're coaching that many teams. But like I still get intense, with the swim team. Like I'm still hyped to be there, and I'm I love what they're doing, and I'm about it. and they're a really fun team to be around. Uh, but it looks different. It's a different kind of hype, you know? And so I think that's why it's important to get outside of like the strength and conditioning, the hard science stuff, the methods and all that, and like learn about yourself, like learn kind of who you really are, like what is your personality actually, what are your lines in the sand that like you just can't put up with and stuff like that. But without that self-reflection, both in the beginning and then throughout your career, you're going to have a hard time finding consistent buy-in because you're never taking the time to sort through the information that the teams are giving you.
Playing like devil's advocate in like an interview setting when, and I have asked this question before, but
Mhm.
when you are being interviewed for a role where it's like we win championships, like we need hardcore results, like all we need is winning, like that's the main focus. How do you bring something that might not be quantitatively there, like building culture or uh making everything about relationships into that setting?
It's That's a layered question because like the reality of all of this is that I'm saying all of these things about, our role as performance practitioners, right? But at the end of the day, like if you're working with a sports team, you got to keep it in line with what the top is saying. Like I can't preach certain things that may step on the sport coach's toes, even if I believe in them and I truly don't think that there would be any harm to it. I can't just sit there and outright and blatantly go over their head or say, no, what your coach said is wrong. So, like, you kind of are always in that. And so, knowing that going into a very highly competitive space, just like I said, when you're working with teams, like, bring out the competitive side of yourself, bring out the results driven side of yourself. So that's within every performance practitioner, right? Like, whether it's your own selfish progress that you've seen and experienced, right? Or if you've had the opportunity to program for other people and see other people's progress, like that hits us like that. That's a sign that we did a good job, right? And that we helped in some way. And so that lies within all of us, results driven, high performing, competitive. You let that shine in an interview like that, right? And you're the subject matter expert in that room. So you have all the ammo ready for if the specific questions come, but all you're talking about are the results that you've gotten before, and the injury rates that went down, right? And if you were in a place or you yourself were collecting like well-being and readiness scores, be like their minds were good too, right? Like you just fit your system to feed the narrative that they're wanting. And then you get your foot in the door. And let's say you get the job. Now that stuff comes in. Now you can start assessing, okay, where am I? What do I know needs to happen in terms of the culture in this weight room that I'm now in charge of? Right. And you start finding little pockets to put your stuff in. And before you know it, it's yours. Because that is true. Like championship coaches, they don't want to hear about what you think about their culture. The hell do they need to know from you, man? They got the rings to prove that their culture works. You know, uh, like feed that. Be like, yeah, I want to be a part of that, right? Um, and it may not be you get the whole team in your culture zone that you want at first, but like you have so many opportunities for one-on-one time with these student athletes to affect them in that way. A bit more informally, right? Where you can still again like take that kind of like through relationship driven, culture driven. It's all about the environment and the relationships and people, and like you can still express that, just maybe not in the full scale way all at once.
I kind of want to go like touch on something you talked a little bit about, maybe go off on a little tangent on it. You talked about like kind of like tracking stuff and like using like data to improve buy-in. And I have a feeling you could talk about it, but you're going to say primarily good things about it. So I'm going to load the question a little bit on the back end. Are there any situations where you've seen or you've tracked stuff and you've seen like the opposite happen, where athletes kind of like maybe retract a little bit because of the thing that you're tracking?
Oh yeah, yeah, that happens. Um, but it's to me having it outweighs that because all that is a learning opportunity. Like, it kind of sounds a little corny, but like, I mean, dude, if you got this person for 4 years and you notice as a freshman, they beat themselves up every time they don't PR on the jump mat and you never like talk to them about that thought process, like you gotta keep your eyes open, man. And you gotta be willing to like talk to these people and like get them to like untangle themselves from that. Right. And now there's a different conversation if 6 weeks go by, and they haven't even maybe gotten close to their PR, and that's happened before too. um, but it's important to have that stuff there for when it works, because I think when it works it has a really tremendous effect. um, and then when it's not working, that's just an opportunity for you as a coach to like try and mentor in some capacity, or try and change that sort of like negative spiral just because they didn't hit the number. And since we're going off on a tangent here, one thing that I find is pretty cool that I'm planning to try is something that Austin Yoakum talked about, where with different exercises and like exercise themes. So let's take like sprints and jumps, for example. He likes to vary them every 3 weeks. And like for us, like in at PLU, we'll take the baseline assessment, right? That's just the normal version of an exercise. And then every 3 weeks we just add a wrinkle, right? Like, okay, instead of doing a counter movement jump, you're gonna jump over a hurdle first and then do it. Right. And so what that kind of ends up creating in my mind when I think through it is like this sort of PR loop, right? Because chances are the majority of the time, I think week one is your baseline, right? Week two, you're going to PR from familiarization. I think it's not all the time like that, but in most cases, and even looking at our own data at POU, that's a general trend that I found is like usually week two of a new variation, you'll get another PR, right? And then week three is one of three ways: stagnant, PR, or down a little bit. And no matter what you get on that time, you go directly into a new exercise where you hit your baseline, probably PR week two, right? And then whatever direction you go week three. And so, like, that's almost a way to eliminate a little bit of that while still using technology as a mainstay in your programming. And I'm really excited to kind of try that out, and see how the sort of vibe changes around those things. Because I know some people loathe when the jump mats are out and when the dashers are out for sure.
Like I'm assuming another way you like to create buy-in is like somehow tying what you're doing back to the sport they play. What are ways you do that, and how do you get that across to the athletes, even if it may not look like the sport?
I'm trying like sometimes it's like you just get hit with like the Holy Spirit and you kind of black out a little bit because you like start talking about an exercise and then you start like, at least in this, I say I, like, or you, I said me, I'll start like trying my best to look like I'm doing the sport that I'm talking about. And like I'll be like, see, bam, like right there. That's the same thing that we're talking about. Um, but I think that this is something that I don't think you have to do necessarily from the onset. I think this can be a case by case thing because if your training is fun and enjoyable, I think most people will enjoy the process of jumping higher, sprinting faster, and getting stronger, or learning a new skill. Becoming more competent at something, and that'll get them pretty far. But one of the things that you can do is just try and like a little brief like lecture to some degree. Like I don't, they're not like the more often you use them, I think the less like sting they have. But if you can do a well-timed, like, hey, the reason we're doing this is because in this exercise, you are required to do A, B, and C. And now let's take that onto the field or onto the court or whatever. And in this situation, you're also going to be required to do A, B, and C, right? It's not the exact thing. You don't know how it's going to happen in the sport, but you are going to get exposed to that. And so it's important we prepare you for it, right? And so I think it's easy enough in sport to like find all these different uh like patterns that you can sort of like mimic, right? And tying the worth of the movements into like these common patterns that you're going to be asked to access is a good way to do it. But I think a lot now, like a lot of the kids understand that like getting stronger, jumping higher, and getting faster is probably going to give them a chance to be better at their sport. And sometimes it's as easy as that. Be like, what are the chances that you're better at your sport with you here now, same skill level at the sport with your strength, power, and speed? What are the chances that you're going to be better if you stay the same skill level at your sport, but now you're stronger, more powerful, and faster? Right? Like it's as simple as that. Like training is just raising the ceiling for what you can express in your sport. Right? Now, obviously, there has to be the skill acquisition and development that comes with that sport practice. You can't just go and mindlessly go through a practice and be a weight room warrior and expect to get better. But if you're focused at practice and you practice with intent, chances are all of those physical adaptations that you have now gained from training will be able to show themselves better. Right? Um, a lot of these things aren't as specific as we think they are sometimes with strength, power, and speed. You know what I mean? Like getting general global stimulus that you could call strength, that you could call power, that you could call speed. Like you're gonna go far. And like what really does matter is how you're focused at practice and what is the intent that you have at practice to learn those game specific skills. Because if you suck, man. No amount of work will change you enough to go from, you know, fourth string to all American. It can happen. It certainly can happen, but you need to focus on your sport. It's not your answer's not in the weight room as much as you think it is. It's important and it's a good way to stay disciplined and be in the mindset of like I am working towards a goal. Um, But yeah, if you love the weight room, but then you don't love practice, like you're not gonna get better, man. You gotta love practice.
I was gonna ask, and then like even going down to a micro level, like in like to an individual. If you have individuals who might be very, very skilled at their sport, they've never ever seen the weight room, and then you have like weight room warriors, uh, gym bros who like kind of like the gym is kind of like their like that's where their happy spot is. How do
Mhm.
you? And I would assume like how would you structure it so for the person who's very skilled at their sport to try those new things in the gym when it's again it's like uh they're very cognizant of trying new things when they've already been driven by just being good at their sport to lead them on the path they're going on.
Yeah, so like how do you work to create value with those types of individuals, whether they're weight room warriors and not so good at their sports or the opposite?
Yeah, or like any other traits that people may have that are different.
Yeah, I don't really know. That's a good question. I feel like if somebody is so good at their sport and they've been writing that on an individual level, like just dose them with what they are willing to do. Be like, how much time do you want to put into this? Yeah, and this is now I'm talking about like we're in a one-on-one setting. Like this person is in my facility to train one-on-one with me. You know, uh, I think it's pretty easy there. You just start with like how much time you're willing to dedicate to this. It's like, all right, cool. Like make it simple, make it things that they're going to excel at so that they already feel comfortable, right? Because if you're taking someone who's really, really good at their sport and week one, you just absolutely expose everything and make them feel not good and make them feel stupid, they're not going to want to come back to you week one. That's like week eight shit. Like you like make them comfortable, right? And then for the weight room warriors, I think it's more of a conversation. And now I guess I'm getting back more into maybe a collegiate space, right? Where you're kind of in the flow of their natural day with class and practice and stuff like that. You can ask them when you see them coming in the weight room for extra work, be like, what'd you do on the field today? Did you get any extra work in on the field? Right. And I think just like supporting them and telling them that, like, hey, you've kind of reached like a level where this stuff is good and we're going to keep doing it, but you need to find a way to sort of transfer that energy and that passion over into getting better at your sport. And that's not a job for me as a strength and conditioning coach. That's like a one-on-one with your coach and them going through practice, different drills and stuff with you. I feel like I wanted to give a better answer on that, but that's kind of where I'm at with that one right now, is just encourage the weight room warriors to kind of get out and maybe start finding pockets of time to do more sports specific skill work. And then for the people who are not ready so much to like buy into a full hour session in the weight room, chop it up for them. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's harder to do in the collegiate setting, for me at least. Like, I could never imagine catering a workout to one person just because they don't like the weight room. I would probably just be like, you don't have to show up then. Like it's okay. You don't have to be here. Or like, give me the program that you want to run and I'll like, give it a once over and make some changes and modify it as I see needed. But if you're training them, if they're paying you to train and they're a little resistant, maybe their parents are pushing them in to do something, you can work with that. And two, in both of those situations require you to have a good enough relationship with the athlete to have those types of vulnerable conversations where you're basically trying to tell them, hey, you're not good enough at your sport. You're okay in here. Get out and do your sport more, or vice versa. Like, hey, you're already great out there. Like, let's see how much better you can get if you just take time away and dedicate it into here. A big ask for both those types of people.
Yeah, I like that. I want to touch on something you mentioned in the presentation that I really like, is that you're preparing these athletes for life, like throughout these 4 years. You talked about how we're kind of like in an obesity epidemic right now, where like, um, right, we have people who graduate college and then it's like they forget how to train. So what are the ways that you incorporate and teach people how to train within their training session, even though it might be for their sport at the time?
Yeah, I think I'm still trying to find out a way that I can do that like organically through the messages that I like convey in the weight room, or like the things I say, or the people, the conversations that I have. But something that it was an idea that uh one of my buddies, Coach Brent Rolling, he's the head strength and conditioning coach at Kowloon actually. And he talked about this idea of making like a packet to like send every senior away with who comes through the athletic program, and like essentially like trying to figure out like what is general fitness and sort of sport type fitness, what does that like look like. And so like a general guide on like what your training should look like if you want to get stronger or if you want to jump higher, and even like leaving sample programs and stuff in there. Like I think it is maybe a bit of a front loading type project where like, yes, you're gonna have to dedicate the time to make this packet, but once you have it made, I think that's something that is a great way to kind of like, if maybe me as a coach, I fell short in sort of conveying that message, at least I have that. At least I sent them off with something, with some kind of information to guide them. Because the other parts of that is like not even just getting out of shape, and maybe just gaining weight and becoming more sedentary, but for the people who want to continue to like recreationally play their sport or find their way into another sport, right? Like, you don't want to be that, just like you don't want to be the sort of athlete who loses their way and forgets how to be active altogether. You don't want to be the former athlete who goes to play pickup 2 years after they graduated college and like blows a knee or, like tweaks their ankle or something like that. And then what happens when you're there? It's like about creating a first line of defense for autonomy, right? And it's like if you have this first line of defense, you maybe don't have to go in and spend money on a physical therapist or spend god awful amounts of money on a personal trainer and now you have to go through personal trainers and physical therapy clinics to like vet those professionals. And that's so much time to invest it. Like most people won't do it. And they just stop in their tracks. And now because of that injury, now they're in the obesity category or they're in the sedentary category. Um, so I'm not really sure yet how it comes up more organically. I think that will take time. Like it'll be interesting to see how many of the people who like graduate still train in that way. Because I get like at least somewhat of a glimpse of like kids who've graduated and now they're coming in on their own. And you know, maybe if I start seeing more like split squat isos from those people, that will be like my barometer for whether whether or not I actually accomplished this goal. But I think at least that packet idea from Brent is pretty solid. I mean, what would you guys think about that? Like, I know
I
you
think
guys know what
Victoria
you're doing.
I think Victoria made the perfect programs for because it's like you you leave college, you try to go play pickup basketball, you get jumper's knee. So you get on the jumper's knee protocol. Then you want to get bigger. So then you get on hypertrophy clusters. And then it's like you want to jump higher. So you go jumper or you get a vertical jump program. And then it's just like a complete cycle. I don't
Yeah,
know, I heard someone
and
say
then
that.
then
That's
you
kind of
eventually
silly.
hurt your knee again. You got to go back to jumper's knee protocol.
But yeah, I like the idea. Especially because it's like the athletes have it in them, like they have it in their head somewhere. It's just like they need something to explain it to them and like connect the dots. It's like we all know what the sets and reps were for that like hypertrophy phase, and we know what they were for the strength phase. We have an idea what the exercises are, but then it's like, all right, how can I connect the dots? Like, what's the thinking behind it? And something as simple as like hypertrophy stay in the 3 to 4 rep range of you know
Yeah.
10 to 12 reps or like power 5 6 like those rep ranges are even something that are so simple that can help those people. But yeah, I think that's a really cool idea, especially because like you said, the amount of money that goes in personal trainers, and you might not even like be able to get those specific goals that you want from personal trainer. It's really hard. It's like the the ability to find a specific personal trainer for what you want, I feel like is not always the easiest. And
Yeah.
there's no categorization, I would say.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's and Rowan, like with the PT field too, right? Like there's no guarantee that the PT clinic you're going to is going to prepare you for athletic movement again. Like I feel like that's still like that's almost like an advertising tool for PT clinics that do that. Right?
Yeah, I think it's like a very far and few between where you get like that full scale of like injury to returning to if you're an athlete returning to sport or if you're a regular person really returning to like the actual demands of life. Um, Touching on the previous question, I think that packet's a great idea. I
Mm,
think that's really cool and unique. And then another thing I think is important is like I think you also kind of get that through like staying active on like social media. I
mhm.
know I'm in the world and I just graduated, but like seeing both of you guys, what you post on social media, it's like fun to follow along with that. And I think if I were to put myself in the shoes of someone who like didn't really know what to do training, like I could just reference your social media and just honestly
Mhm.
like try out some of the stuff. And like even that alone is going to be enough like general physical activity to help keep me in shape. So I think
Yeah,
just like
man.
keeping a presence on social media and allowing people to like follow along with you and then also invite them to be able to like ask you questions about certain stuff as well.
And that's why, like, the relationship, me, for example, like, if I'm not an open, trustworthy, like, consistent person to the people who come to POU and then follow me on social media, like, they're not going to reach out. And that's like another side of it, that I think what you're saying where social media can help is like, if every sort of round of student athletes, like, I'm gaining these followers and they don't feel comfortable sending me a DM after they graduate, I've done something wrong. Like, I want to create an environment in real life that when they see the shit on social media, they're like, I can just message Coach Losack. Like, I'm a little confused, or like I had a question about the packet, or like I want to try something different. Can I have some advice? It's like and that's, again, that's like ties into to why it's important to like really have, like, to bring it back to the question about, like, setting them up for life. It's like, if that's what you're trying to do, you may well be setting yourself up to be kind of this person's sounding board throughout the rest of that journey. You hope so. Um, at least because it's fun. I mean, we're in this because there's some satisfaction in helping, right? Um, and so, yeah, like, yeah, that's a really good point, Rowan. It is, especially nowadays, like, and two, like, sometimes I'll post stuff that, like, you guys have programmed, because one, I don't have content for, like, of myself I filmed. So I'm like, all right, we're throwing in like summer warm up for, here we go. Um, and so, like, it was funny because one of the football kids, I posted the linear speed warm up that I have programmed with the tennis ball catches and stuff and some of the technique work. And two of the football guys came in, were like, "Oh, coach, like, we were doing the warm up," and I'm like, "Oh, this is familiar. Like, I've seen this before." Right. And so, like, there's almost like a vulnerability in posting your work and your programming, your exercises onto social media. And, like, I mean, I don't know I don't have enough data points to say if this is true, but like, they may be willing to trust it more if it's on social media, which is kind of weird. Um, but maybe there's something there.
Yeah, that's interesting. I actually never even thought about it that way, but like from like just an exposure effect. I mean, that's certainly a thing from psychology. It's like the more you see something, the more you're willing to trust it, and the more you think of it in a positive light. So that's an interesting thought.
Yeah.
Going off that, I've actually thought about that. And I think it also goes to say that when you're like explaining exercises in a workout, like if I were to explain what every exercise does, their adaptations, why it can help them, it's like you're just gonna lose control of the audience. Like it's just gonna like go through one ear out the other. And I think like when you post something on social media, it's like, okay, they can actually like take the like 1 minute to just like look over, you know, what it does or what the adaptations are, what it's good for, we're going to transfer to. Because if you try to do that in an 8 exercise workout, it's like you're just going to lose. You're going to lose them. Like they're not going to listen.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's hard because, like, part of the process of becoming a coach is, I think you kind of have to, and I could be wrong, everyone's different, but I feel like you have to go through a phase where, like, you kind of are almost talking a little too much. Like, you basically talk too much until you find what the capacity of, like, that team is for your words, and you're like, all right, cool, we found the limit. Now we can start peeling it back. Um, but two, it's practice. Early on, like, the more that you're coaching, like, that, there's only one way to get better at something. You got to practice, and coaching involves talking. It involves other things too, but, like, correcting exercises, like finding minute changes and then vocalizing them helps you see it more. in the future. And so like it's good to kind of be an egghead around like the trying to coach like the what was it, one of the coaches at Merrimack said ABC, which is a Mike Boyle thing. Um, always be coaching. And it's like, all right, well, I mean, at that time when I heard it, I'm like, no, but um, for for people who are just getting their feet wet, like yeah, like look for stuff to coach. You gotta practice it, and then you'll learn what things are worth coaching and maybe not worth coaching, um, and things that maybe are okay that aren't okay, and then you screw up with that sometimes too. Like me, I need to tighten up a little bit on some different movements. I'm getting tired of the way people are holding this bar for a back squat. I need I need technical precision and where that bar is on your trap.
I'm glad no one's like hate commented on any of my posts yet. I've gotten one person on YouTube or some people on YouTube where it's like, oh, your knees are gonna blast open, or like your elbows are gonna like break. But I guess it goes back to the vulnerability thing. It's like you're exposing yourself out there for someone just to like shit on you, kind of.
Yeah, yeah. I think, and that dude, like it was I was posting that that impulse video, and I posted on YouTube, and like I posted it, and then within 5 minutes there was already like one guy being like, "You're an idiot," and then and it had like a snowballing effect. Like one person asked, like, "What is this doing?" And I'm like, "What do you think it's doing, and who do you think it's for?" And some guy replied to that and was just like, I don't know, like motherfucker, it looks like you're fucking trick or treat training. Looks like you're practicing knocking on doors. So it's just doing like that, like the impulse like that. And I was like, damn, dude. I mean, that was good. I liked it. I'm like, that's a good one. Like that's pretty good. Um, but yeah, I think that's a good point, is that like that is the vulnerability of posting it on a public thing like YouTube or like Instagram, is that like you're opening yourself up to that hate. Like I remember one of my buddies from back home reposted the reel that I had of me, doing that bit at the conference, or at the clinic rather. And somebody replied to his story, another person who we know from back home. And I don't think she like got the message of what I was trying to do. Uh, she replied to the story, "What does this white man know about culture?" And and he sent that to our group chat. We were dying. We are like, wrong culture, dude. Like not, that's not the culture that I was talking about. I don't think I'm fit to speak on that for sure, but I think I can talk about a weight room pretty confidently. Um, but yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, man, like, and the statement's gonna sound like, I've gotten a lot of like, hey, no one comments on my stuff that like isn't my friend. Uh, but like, it's funny, dude. Like, I think it's funny. Maybe that'll change if I'm getting like hundreds of comments that are like suck. Like, maybe that'll take a toll on my mental health. But like, I mean, that's just funny. You got to
I
be
don't know
able to
why
laugh that stuff off.
I don't know why the YouTube comments are so harsh. I have
They
like
are. They're way harsh.
I have like two subscribers on YouTube, and anytime I post anything, like for a while I was posting workouts when I was doing stuff in the fall for some of the baseball guys, just so they could like watch videos of it. I was getting like some of the clips I was getting like thousands of views on, and like people were just in the comments just hating. But I think when you get like hate on it, you're doing like something right. Because
Yeah.
honestly, you don't see a lot of like the top people in the industry spending time to comment hateful stuff on
Right.
people's posts. And so it's like it's kind of the people who are under you and really don't really know what they're doing that I feel like that are commenting on a lot. So
Yeah. It was the guy who, uh, the comment on the strap impulse was just like, you're gonna destroy your shoulders when you're older. And I went to his profile, and it was like he's like a Twitch streamer for some like MOBA, like League of Legends or Dota 2. And and that was just all he had. And I'm like, all right, dude. Like I mean, you must be in shape, man. You must know what's up. Uh it's yeah, dude, that stuff's crazy. I was trying to think. Oh, one of my favorite comments was I started using like BL and UL for just bilateral and unilateral. And I posted an exercise called the BL rhythm bound. Um, and one of the comments was, "Oh my God, like I love Boys Love Rhythm Bound. That's my favorite manga." And so I think the BL acronym is already taken by Boys Love Manga. But yeah, so and like when I read it, I was just like, before I even searched it up, I'm like, that does kind of sound like an anime name, like Boys Love Rhythm Bound. I'm like, let's do it.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. It's fun though, man. I actually I remember I told this quote for quote to one of my friends when I think this was like before I even moved out to Iowa. So like 2021. I said like if you ever see me making a coaching Instagram and like posting my stuff, like just end it, dude. I'm like I've gone off the deep end. And like I don't know why I was so hesitant and like resistant to do it. But then I actually started doing it. I'm like, I don't have to like again, I think it's another place to like truly show who you are, which again, like as a coach, gives you value, like and it's because like people from the school follow me and stuff, and so like it's a little bit it's not weird, but like I'm scrolling and I'm seeing people's like IG posts, and I'm like, I don't need whatever. Like any like anything that's not like one of the strength and conditioning accounts, I'm just like, yeah, that's fine. Um, but like it gives them sort of like this window almost into who you are as an individual. Um, and if it's it's one thing for them to like see you train, right? But when you put it out, it's like there's writing, there's a caption, there's things that you put in there that are part of you, and it's just you being yourself, which I think is the best way to do it. And I think guys like Yoakum and like his army that he created are really sort of doing that the best way, where it's just like they're purely just posting all the weird stuff that they're doing and they're owning it and they're getting more cerebral about it. Like there's mindset stuff in there too. Um, and I think they're starting a wave of like that's sort of what works. And that's I need to get better at making memes though, dude. I really the meme currency is what's really the most valued,
I want to get into the memes, but I see one and I'm like, oh, why didn't I think of that? But I
right?
can never think of them on my own.
Yeah.
What
But
are
yeah,
the
so it's just another way to be like, hey, like I'm a real person too. Like I'm not sitting up here on a pedestal trying to, act like I'm better than anybody, like I just like this is it. And so yeah, like more of those touch points that you give, like again, just the better the culture is gonna be. It's like the more open people are, the more people are willing to be vulnerable. And like at the end of the day, like everyone should kind of know what the style of training is. And once, everybody's good to go, like you're doing technical shore ups here and there, if you see anything crazy, but the goal is to kind of turn it into a session where you can kind of shoot the shit, right? Where it's like you're doing the work. I don't even have to worry because, you've trained in a way that I can trust you to do the right thing. Um, and then we just train and we talk, and we laugh and we have a good time because everything else for that setting and environment is so damn structured um, and just puzzle pieced in that it's like they got to have some reprieve. They got to have some place where they're just like, yes, like hell yeah, like even if I don't like training, like at least I'm going to be in a space with my team where we can like shoot the shit and be open and like tell jokes and um, enjoy that hour.
I kind of have like one more big question, pertaining to like the culture in the weight room. So you've just, you're going now into your second year at PLU.
Mm-hmm.
That first year was probably like the big upfront, like creating the culture. do you think it's going to be something that is kind of becomes almost like athlete led at a certain point, where the athletes that have been part of your culture for a while, like kind of bring it on themselves to teach it to the new athletes, and it kind of carries on that way? Or do you think it's going to be something that you kind of have to rebuild every year when athletes come back to campus?
I think the first initial weeks are always going to be a little bit of a rebuild. Um, but I think like even now, like there's groups of returners that like I would trust to sort of like brief a warm up or be like, hey guys, like here's the warm up. You remember these? They're like, yeah. I'm like, all right, go for it. Right. Um, but it's also hard sometimes to like give that away. You know what I mean? Because you're automatically opening the door for imperfection and for mistakes to be made. Um, but that's kind of the point. Uh, so I mean, I think like, if I'm thinking like really long term, I mean, yeah, by the time that the freshman class last year is seniors, like I want them to be ready. Like I want them to be going and able to do those things. But there are certainly people already who are coming back that I would trust to be like, hey, like get everyone going on this, or call them up for a demo, or call them up to have them sort of explain the exercise. I think one of the things that I want to try and do is put a freshman in every group. And so, like, put a freshman or two in each group, and maybe the first couple of days are more like an intro to how we do things here, right? Like, get involved with like, how does this training session flow, so they know what to expect. Um, Take them through like basic fundamental movement patterns and have them grouped up with returners who can coach them up when they're doing their stuff. Um, so it's definitely a lot to think about, but I think too there's still in my where my head's at is I think there's still work that needs to be done in terms of like results, and how I feel about the amount of improvement that I want to see. So we'll kind of see. But like there are definitely some ideas flowing of how I want to do that, but it may take me another year. Because this was really sort of sorting through a lot of different types of way or like different types of ways of doing things and structuring things. And I now feel like I'm really settled on this system and the structure that I want to deliver these programs in. Yeah, so maybe one more year before we really ratchet up and start trying to purposely like develop leaders within the team. Um, because teams do better when the leaders aren't just the captains. When you have more informal leaders, whether they're leaders in the weight room or leaders in social settings like that, those people matter too. It's not just about the captains. Everyone has an opportunity in some form or fashion or facet to step up and be a leader. Um, it doesn't have to be athletics or academically related. It can be socially related. It can be emotionally related, right? Like you're the person that everyone goes to when they have something on their mind that they need to talk about and they need an honest answer in an honest conversation. Um, you could be the guy who lives in a house that everyone comes over and hangs out at, and like you organize things with the team and like, you're always kind of making sure you're hanging out with each other. Um, so yeah, it doesn't just have to be in those formal settings around sports and class.
I was gonna say one more thing along the lines of like the Yoakum thing you're talking about, and like names start to pop in my head, like Tommy Hansen, and just like these places where they make training fun, and it kind of all ties back together. It's like they make training fun, they still get their results, and they still go after goals, but having fun drives the culture and drives the intensity and makes them want to come back. And I know like with Tommy Hansen, I've like listened to his podcasts, and it's like a lot of them are just like kids who don't even like play a sport. They just like want to go have fun physical activity and like a place to go to. And that kind of drives the culture of just like, we keep coming back, and it's not for, may not be for sports or something. I think it's like cool because you brought that appeal you where it's like, we're going to play spike ball for one, or like, we're going to play the games. And it's like, it kind of drives the mood and intensity for everything else that comes in the lift. And again, like at the end of the day, that's probably what it comes down to. I mean, there's the thing of like, it's not about the sets and reps. It's about like the experience and like the relationships and the things you do. That's really cool.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, like that's that like making that better will do nothing but enhance the results that you get from a training program. You can stick to a training program and be a mindless robot and get results. 100% you can do that. But you probably would have gotten better results if you were having fun while you were doing it. And so yeah, dude, it's it's a it's something that's always, that you just got to be aware of. Like sometimes you look up and you're like, man, this program's boring. Needs a little spice. More and more spike ball. Gosh, if only, dude. If only with the 50 kid baseball team we could get it done all at once in Memorial
Spike ball
without
team.
any spike balls going over the black wall to the ceiling of despair.
That's asking too much there.
It's-
That's where the line gets drawn.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, there has to be at least one that gets sent over the wall.
Even med balls from over that wall, not just spike balls.
Yeah. Yeah, we need to play oomph ball again. Haven't played oomph ball in a while.
Oomph ball and speed. We should introduce speedball. I think speedball would be a fun one. Be a
Yeah,
lot
I
of
saw one.
explaining rules.
Yeah, I think we can copy one from Yoakum, but it's essentially like keep away with the ball. And there's a ring around the basket, and you have to score while you're in the air at the line of the cones. So you basically just have that line of cones with some space between that and the basket, and you have to jump at the cone line in the air is when you can do your shot. Yeah, I throw that one in there. Do with the rowers.
Anything else, Anthony?
Nah, I had some pretty lofty questions. Sorry about that. I was trying to get them out the best I could.
Oh yeah, that was good. I think that was a good conversation. There we
Yeah,
go. We're back. We got it done. This one's
that's
been
it, dude.
cooking for a while, so I'm glad we could
Yeah.
find time with all of our schedules.
Yeah, dude. Glad we could kick off season 2 the right way.
There we go.
This will be
Yeah.
this will be the setting forever, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, dude. It'll be. I'm excited to see both of your guys's experiences. Yours from a distance there, Rowan, but and obviously yours too, Anthony. But I mean, dude, you must be loving the fact that you're in TCU's weight room. Like the options are endless.
Yeah. Especially in pitch
Yeah,
charge. And I love my pitch charge.
absolutely, dude. But yeah, it'll be fun to see what you bring back to us here at PLU, and then I'm just ready to start stealing stuff from you, Rowan. Whenever you start making it, I'm ready to start
Yep.
stealing
Thank
it.
you. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you, Lozack, for coming on.
Yeah,
It's been a pleasure. Thank you, everyone who's watching this right now. We appreciate all the support, and hopefully, we'll have some more content getting pumped out here in the next coming months. So,
there. Thanks for having me, guys.
yeah, of course.